First up is Greg Hunter.
So, Coach, I guess just a general basic one. Why the move? Like it? I assume you do. So just give us your thoughts behind it.
Yeah, I think it's really exciting. I think the move was probably something that when we looked at it overall, obviously we were very, very happy with our home, pretty content with being in the MAC, quite honestly. It's provided a great home for us for 9 years. And it really wasn't a case of them doing anything wrong or any element of disgruntlement towards the MAC. I think it was more looking at the trajectory of Conference USA, obviously, as well, with the addition of Coastal Carolina this season as well. Looking at those fixtures, looking at the quality of games and opponents that we'll have, and the way that we feel like that conference is trending. I feel like this is now, has already proven, but will continue to prove to be one of the strongest men's soccer conferences in the country. So that had the most to do with it. Ultimately, was just the quality of competition on a consistent basis.
We'll go to Sam Caniglia.
Coach, you're kind of taking the spotlight from the Euros with this announcement, but how long has this kind of been in the talks? It kind of took us off guard. How long has this been in discussion behind the scenes?
Probably late January, February was the first time it was, if you like, broached to me and was, if you like, posed to me as something would we be interested in? And then, we obviously went through a pretty lengthy process of considering all the factors, considering the quality of where we were, what was working for us well, looking at the quality of opponents, looking at the finances in relation to the changing conference, from a standpoint of travel and different things like that, and felt like there was, if you like, not too much in it between the two from a cost perspective. And then again, it was really, if you like, I have to say a lot of credit to Shane and to Simon Dover from a standpoint of feeling like I had quite a lot of freedom of choice in the proposal and in the decision. Once those I's were dotted and those T's were crossed, that it was really down to me and what we felt was going to be the best thing moving forward for the program. So incredibly excited. And this has been a long time coming. It was a secret kept for probably three of us, and those three that I mentioned, for a very, very long time. So glad now that it's out in the open. The players have literally only just found out this the same time as everyone else here at 1 o'clock, so they're excited as well. And definitely the initial response from what I've seen on social media and with my phone blowing up at the moment is all a lot of excitement.
Okay, next is Kevin Kinder.
And Coach, along with some of those factors you mentioned, how much did your relationship with Coach Grassi at Marshall play into that? Obviously you all have been really tied, aligned a long time. How much does that go into it, and the ability to have those as conference games now, I'm assuming, moving forward?
Yeah, well, as I said, this was brought to our attention in January, February time. So little did I know that they were going to go on and do what they did this season. So it was a decision that was made really without, if you like, that final outcome of this season. But obviously, they're close rivals. They're close by, and then looking at the challenges, knowing Chris intimately in terms of what they've had to do, if you like, to take that program from where it was and become very, very competitive within Conference USA, and then obviously go on to win it for the last 2 years as well. Knowing that they have the likes of Charlotte, Kentucky, FIU, to name only a few, quite honestly, of very, very difficult opponents. I could lean on that a little bit, and we have some familiar foes, right? We obviously played Charlotte and Marshall this season. We have Kentucky on the schedule, although not announced. We do have Kentucky on the schedule for this fall as well. So we knew that going into that conference, it was going to be tough. We're very, very familiar with what they've done. Charlotte, Kentucky, and Marshall all made the national tournament this year and have really shown a good tradition of doing so. The college soccer world is a small one, so I'm familiar with those programs and some of those coaches, not just Chris. But yes, there did come a time where I was able to kind of broach that and have that discussion with him once they were aware, and Conference USA were aware that this was potentially in the works for sure.
Next is John Antonic.
Curious how much the two affiliate members, South Carolina and Kentucky, played into your decision to go to the league. I guess like-minded schools. And with you guys entering the league now, where does this put Conference USA in terms of soccer conferences, in your opinion?
Yeah, I think that was perhaps more of a factor for Shane, quite honestly, in the decision-making process in terms of reaching out to some of those schools that have that Power 5 affiliation, and getting a sense of how that, how that's worked for them specific to their men's soccer program. Again, it's become a safe haven, if you like, for these Power 5 schools that don't have men's soccer. But again, that was part of our process, part of the decision-making process. We didn't, nothing became final before a lot of those conversations had happened behind closed doors and very quietly, to make sure that we had all of the information. And then to answer your second question there, yeah, I mean, it's fantastic. I think with the addition of Coastal Carolina and ourselves, who, I've made no bones about it, we're an aspiring top 10 program, and we have every intention of being there as quickly as possible. Then you had Coastal Carolina, who traditionally speaking are always a top 25 program, have been to multiple national tournaments, and always have been very, very tough fixture. Add to that, South Carolina have just got a new head coach as well, and I know that he'll have bad intentions when it comes to the conference and what he's looking to do on a national scale. So I really do feel like Conference USA is going to put itself up there with the best of them. I think ACC is probably the poster child for men's soccer, but I expect the Conference USA is going to put itself in there closely behind, and will have intentions to perhaps surpass that as well. So, those factors, along with the announcement for Chris at Marshall signing a long-term contract, so knowing that he's going to be there long-term, and that you would expect that Marshall will stay incredibly competitive in the top 10 in the country. I'm sure Charlotte and Kentucky, FIU, all have something to say about that as well. So yeah, it's going to be tough. It's going to be tough, but that's exactly it. If we're going to be a top 10 program, then we need to be playing the likes of those teams. We already were in non-conference, and now we get to do it in the conference every year. So it's incredibly exciting for that reason.
And real quickly, a 10-team conference, it's just more of a conference feel than a 16 league that with different schools and the whole deal there in it. It's just more of a conference, right?
Yeah, I think there's some factors there as well. I think we would spend an incredible amount of time in the off season and throughout the year, quite honestly, scheduling, just having that many non-conference games to fill to fill the schedule, with us being in the MAC. I can't say that was a significant factor in the decision, but this certainly helps. I think from an RPI perspective, when you look at the quality of the teams, and again the way that we feel that Conference USA is trending, I think we feel as though Conference USA is going to find themselves ahead in that regard, and some very, very strong teams. Having said that, the RPI record for the MAC was always pretty strong and reflected well as well. So that aspect of things was a fairly even race, if you like. I just think with respect to the MAC and the teams that were in it, I think we felt like there was some more marquee fixtures, obviously Marshall being one of them, but perhaps again the likes of some of those other Power 5 schools that maybe more of a name with respect. Would be greater marquee fixtures for us, and if you like, more appealing to the fans as well.
Last one for me, Dan. Fewer games to hunt for now, right?
Definitely. I think soon we'll have our schedule released for this fall, and we're going to have a great RPI this year. We have an incredible strength of schedule. We have 2 Final Four teams in the first 6 games. I will say that. But some of those are with returns, and now we've got to factor in the fact that we're going to be playing in Conference USA as well. So if we felt it was strong this year, it's going to be even stronger in 2022. So we'll have to find that balance as well of making sure that, yeah, we've got some great non-conference scheduled opponents, but also finding that balance, knowing that it's going to be incredibly tough week to week within Conference USA as well.
Next is Mike Kazaza. Go ahead, Mike.
Hey, Dan, how's it going?
Good, thanks. How are you?
I'm doing well, thank you. Just kind of a question about geography and maybe the changes that they may have.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know, you would visit other parts of the country more regularly, and perhaps that's good for recruiting in certain pockets. But also, like, the type of soccer you play, you're not going to be playing like in cold, snow, wind nearly as often anymore. I know that the weather in Morgantown doesn't change because you change conferences, but your road venues and geographies, and that'll be different too. Is that kind of a thing you have to alter a little bit, whether it is bringing in players or how you use the players in the pitch now?
I wouldn't say it would change how we recruit. I think it'll be more appealing for that reason, quite honestly, for potential recruits. I think we're now the most northern team in that conference. You know, players always like the sound of a trip to Florida, for example. That was a factor when we looked at the facilities and the fields and stadiums and aspects of you know, the players' experience going to some of those places. I think maybe all but Marshall have a grass field and a quality grass field at that. That was definitely a factor in the decision in terms of how appealing it would be, how attractive it would be. You know, the motivation levels of the players when they turn up at a place like Kentucky or Charlotte or some of those other schools I mentioned, knowing that there'll be a good crowd, knowing that they're going to play on a great surface and a good facility in that regard. That should be part of their collegiate experience. You know, it shouldn't be that we're going somewhere and it feels like a struggle before the game's even started. So there were elements of that were definitely appealing and weighed into, if you like, parts of the decision as well, for sure.
And then what about just the weather you play in? Could you be more open, maybe not packed in as much because it's not going to be a 1-0 in an ice bowl?
Maybe. I think the games are going to be tough either way. The games in the MAC were tough, quite honestly, and the results this year showed it in terms of the fine margins in which games were won and lost. You know, when you look at the results, for example, obviously even of someone like Marshall, it wasn't like they were blowing away the field, you know. So I don't know that the weather has a huge and significant factor on the scoreline in that regard. I think it's going to be just going to come down to the quality of the opponent. But yeah, I'm sure the players are going to be pleased that they can wear short sleeves and not need a compression perhaps for a little bit longer going into late September, October than perhaps before with some of the other fixtures that we may have faced.
Go ahead, Nick Farrell.
Coach, you touched on this a little bit ago. Are your players excited about the prospect of this move? And does the timing of this allow you guys to capitalize off some of the excitement surrounding the sport in the state following Marshall's success?
Yeah, I think yes to both. I think that the players are excited. Funnily enough, the ones I've probably heard from the most are the 3 seniors that won't get this opportunity, that won't be with us by 2022, expressing their disappointment. But I think it's a nice time with, obviously, firstly, June 1 just hitting where the dead period has now been lifted and we can recruit. June 15th coming up where we can start to target these 2023s. And then similarly kind of hit the 2022 recruiting cycle with this platform and this springboard to say, hey, look, you know, not only did we play Marshall this year and beat Marshall, who are the national champions, but we're now going to be in that conference in a year's time. So we're definitely going to try and use that to our advantage. What school wouldn't at that point? So I definitely think that the timing was key. The timing was good for us. And as you said, there's a ton of momentum. I've said publicly and behind closed doors, I think Marshall winning it is only a good thing for not just the sport, but for WVU as well, regardless of whether we had won that game in the spring against them or not. So look, I can't wait to play them this fall. We know it's going to be packed when we go back down there. But yeah, on top of that, now we've got some other really, really enticing fixtures come 2022 in conference.
Okay, we'll go Cody and then Sam.
Hi, Dan. So if I'm not wrong, you were on staff when the program first moved to the MAC.
Mm-hmm.
So with that experience, what all goes into moving conferences? Are there difficulties that, you know, we might not expect, or is it, you know, a smooth transition?
I would say this has gone about as smoothly as possible. And again, I'd have to probably thank the likes of Simon Dover and Shane for that transition being as easy as it has been. Obviously, as I alluded to, this was something probably late January, early February that I was made aware of. And I've really been able to do my job. I've really been able to worry about what we were doing this spring season, focus on trying to get results and perform as best as we could for this spring. And those phone calls, those conversations have gone on really behind closed doors and in other offices to this one, which has made my life incredibly easy. I'll be honest, it didn't take us or didn't take me too long to feel like we'd weighed up what we needed to. And you know, I was on board pretty early with the potential of this move, really just because of the quality of fixtures, the marquee games that you have, the names of some of those schools, knowing what it would do in terms of quality of competition, knowing what it might do to appeal to certain recruits along the way, and really promote the program from that perspective. So I know it's going to be harder, but like I said, we have some pretty high ambitions for what this program is trying to achieve, in which case we're going to need those types of tests during the regular season as well. So yeah, I mean, from my perspective, yeah, there's been obviously some other little things and red tape and certain areas that we've had to go through. We've also been very conscious that we wanted to do this as respectfully as possible within the MAC, you know, notifying them accordingly. And like I said, there was never any frustration or resentment or, you know, nothing that occurred, for example, at the end of this season had any bearing on the decision. I think most of the decision had been made by then. So again, we're incredibly appreciative of the home that we found within the MAC, and as I alluded to, all the coaches have been fantastic. It's been quite refreshing to be in a conference where the games are incredibly competitive, but then the quality of communication, dialogue, relationships that we have formed with the other coaches has been fantastic. Off the field and on the field can look very, very different, and I totally respect that. And then to go a step further, Jeff Bacon has been excellent. I have to say, dealing with the pandemic, the time and everything from that standpoint. Again, the quality of dialogue and communication between the coaches to feel like we were all part of making last season work as safely and as effectively to enhance the student athlete experience last season. Jeff takes a ton of credit from that. So we had a good home. We had a good home. And now, with respect, we feel like we've maybe got a slightly better one.
Sam?
So, Dan, you've been all over college soccer, but now you're making the switch from the MAC to Conference USA, I should say. Do you notice a league-wide kind of difference in style of play? Is there any way you're going to have to adjust your X's and O's when you're going to the new conference?
We'll see. Yeah, I mean, I've watched a good amount of those teams. We were supposed to have Coastal on the schedule this year, so we had a full scout ready to go for Coastal before that one was postponed and then ultimately cancelled. We played ODU in pre-season, funny enough, in February, which was more coincidence and as a result of Coastal not being able to fill the fixture. And then of course I've watched Marshall and watched their run in the tournament. I know Chris very, very well. Charlotte was on the schedule, and knowing that we were playing Kentucky in the fall for quite some time, I've kept an eye on them as well. So it would be hard to pin down, this is how Conference USA soccer looks in comparison to what we experience within the MAC. I think really we're just looking ultimately at the tradition of the programs, their records overall, what they've done in the past 10 years, who's made the tournament. And ODU a perfect example. They've made the tournament, I think, twice in the last 5 years. And with respect, haven't made a lot of noise recently because there's just so many good teams within the conference that can cause issues. So I really can't wait for that challenge. I definitely enjoyed this semester, and I've enjoyed competing in the MAC, and we'll certainly have intentions of leaving that with a bang this fall, and hopefully gain momentum with a conference championship, feeling like we have something to defend and something to go into 2022 with. And make sure that we're right where we want to be at the start of that season.
Take the last couple of questions in the queue here. Go ahead, John.
Yeah, I had one more. I told you I would have a speculative question here, I guess. I know you were disappointed that you didn't get in the NCAA tournament this year. If you're in Conference USA, does that push you over and get you a bid this year?
If you're asking if we were 6-3-1 in Conference USA this year, would we have made it? I don't know. I think it's difficult to. That's a pretty strong hypothetical. I've said my piece about how this season ended and expressed our disappointment in obviously being left out. Again, you could look at it that way and go, listen, there was one AQ for the MAC, and that team still had to play a playing game. and you had 3 teams in Conference USA that all made it, 2 of which we beat. So yeah, I mean, hard not to connect those dots and say it's a little bit of a reflection of perhaps where people perceive the Conference USA to be than the MAC. But yeah, I'm still waiting for a rational reason why we didn't make the tournament this year. So hard for me to say why they made it and we didn't. So.
Go ahead, Kevin.
2 quick ones. Number one, you mentioned the reputation of this conference for your stateside recruits. Obviously, that resonates with them. For your international recruits, do you kind of educate them a little bit on that, or what's their level of knowledge? And then secondly, how hard was it for you to keep this secret while all this was going on?
Yeah. Well, firstly, specific to the international recruits, I think it will hit home with them perhaps even more than some of the domestic recruits. I think that will speak for itself. They'll be aware of Conference USA from a standpoint of, yeah, we're going to go to Florida twice. We're going to go to South Carolina twice. That sounds a little bit better. No disrespect to Northern Illinois and Western Michigan. It just sounds a little more appealing. So I do think it will help from that standpoint. You know, when again they're going to see those games, they're going to watch us in good weather, in good conditions, on a nice field. That will play a part for sure. And again, this was ultimately a move because we felt it was for the best interest of how our program can push forward and be the best it can possibly be. So from that standpoint, I do think it helps from an international recruiting perspective. Obviously, there are a number of internationals across the conference as well, which we're well aware of. So yeah, when you see the likes of Marshall's team with a lot of internationals, they've clearly used that to their advantage. And then secondly, yeah, it was tough. It was tough. We were still trying to finishing out the 2021 recruiting class, you know, and we're in competition with sometimes Conference USA schools, sometimes other schools from other conferences. And it was very, very difficult to, you know, to find ourselves in a position. And then on top of that, you know, with, if you like, the way that the season finished for us, some of our players expressed questions about whether or not, you know, this was an option. Could we move conferences? You know, can we find a better home in their perception of things? And again, we weren't really able to say anything. So I know that there's a lot of excitement amongst the players following today's announcement, as there is among the staff. And as I said, yeah, we're incredibly looking forward to it.
Nick, we'll finish with you.
Yeah, Coach, last thought here. We want to focus on this summer. Are you going to be able to have a proper preseason this year? And then I guess is just a completely unrelated follow-up. Is it coming home?
Yeah, we're looking good for a full preseason. You know, I think everyone is still, if you like, cautiously optimistic that, you know, we're going to be uninhibited this season. There's not going to really be, not to say COVID will no longer exist, but that it's, you know, it's if you like, the stranglehold it had on us for the last year will not be the same. Very pleased that almost all of our players, I think all but one, perhaps by the time they left campus this semester, were vaccinated, and that alleviates a lot of the issue and the concerns specific to the athletic department and university as well when it comes to travel. Contact tracing especially was always felt like the biggest hurdle that we were never, you know, it was always a concern and a thought process, whether we were training, traveling, whatever it may be. So yeah, feeling very optimistic that we'll get a full preseason. I cannot wait to get this recruiting class in and really see how it helps strengthen the squad and the depth of the squad. And then to answer your second question, obviously pleasing result for England yesterday. I have been conditioned after 30 plus years now to not get too excited. My youngest, fondest memories perhaps were when they lost in the semi-finals of the Euros in 1996. I can remember crying my eyes out as a 10-year-old boy. So no one wants to see a grown man cry, right? So I'm going to keep it deep down there until the final, and if they make it that far, then that it will top of, yeah, a great summer for us for sure.